Yet another edition of Riding Home, this time just after Stetson Bennett talking today about how he's got to play better, Ryan. And I mean, my well, let me just throw it to you like this. I don't know that he's got to play better. It would be nice to see him play better earlier. How about that?
He needs to limit mistakes. And that's something that was a huge knock on him in 2020 and in 2021 and before that, obviously. He's gotten better every single year, but he's limited his mistakes compared to last year. There were fewer bonehead interceptions this year, just kind of dumb throws. You saw that with the wheel route to Kenny McIntosh in the national championship game. Turnovers can cost you a football game, they can cost you a basketball game. When you don't have the ball, you can't score.
Right,
So
right.
he can't, one interception, that's okay. And he only had the one. But if he goes into this game against TCU and he's throwing multiple picks in the first half, I can't imagine that George is in a good position.
Probably not. And frankly, he rushed that throw to Kenny. Kenny was open. The way
Yeah, if he put that over the top, that was a
it's a
potential
touchdown.
touchdown.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, people want to point out the kind of rollout fake handoff they did to Kenny McIntosh. That if he would have just handed the ball, Kenny also had an
Yes.
opportunity to score. I don't know what the call is on that play. It was probably a designed rollout, as much crap as some people, including myself, have given him for that play. It wasn't like a traditional option play. So, but he's got to. I didn't think he played that poorly in the first
No,
half. The way that
well, no.
the way that it's been like discussed.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it gets out of control quick. I know that's for
It
sure. Hey, listen,
it wasn't that.
make sure you're
I was
signed
just
up for
saying
our
that.
newsletter. We are on a delay for whatever reason. Um, uh, I guess everybody's getting ready to go to LA and eating up the bandwidth. But make sure you're picking up our newsletter. The link is right down below. A lot of people are signing up for it because it doesn't cost any money. So make sure you're picking that up down below. Our friends at Red Zone are really helping us out these weeks. They're going to have everything available if Georgia wins, which we're not there yet, on Tuesday morning. They're also going to have some stuff on their website. So Red Zone in Athens, they had a lot of people go the week after the championship game, Ryan, and stuff will be ready on Tuesday. But he didn't play as poorly look. Part of this is some folks say, well, this guy, they've settled in where they're at with him, and that's just all there is to it. Here's where I've settled with Stetson. You know, when he plays well, he is as clutch as any college football quarterback ever. When he does not play that
Ooh,
well, who else is better,
he's been clutch, man. I mean,
right?
he's been clutch.
So I'm not saying he's the best he's not the best Georgia quarterback ever in terms of skill, but if it comes down to a fourth quarter, he's certainly the guy you want. I do not think that this should become a fourth quarter game. Let me read this to you, Ryan, and you can react to it. This is what Stetson had to say about his interaction with Kirby after the game. He said, "We've all got our emotions, and I felt that way. I didn't play well. It kind of forced me to play well in the fourth quarter. But we don't play. But if we don't play in the second and third quarter, if we don't have that little stretch, then maybe we don't have to play like that. Basically, in the fourth quarter, he's saying. So I agree with Coach Smart. Who knows what the reason was, but it has to be. But it does have to be fixed. We're trying to be perfect. We're trying to do everything we can to make every play perfect. And when it's not, then win or lose, we're not happy with it." He said, "That's my coach, and he's been my coach for several years now, so I trust him. And it doesn't really matter what other people here call me out because I know what's the truth. I know that's the truth. Um, and so the truth, and everybody can hear it. And he's right. I do need to play better." The best part about having someone who has maturity is, I mean, when I'm wrong, I like to say that and move on. I don't want to defend my stupidity, which occurs sometimes when you're a parent, right? So, well, I've said right to you like you have any idea, but
Hope not.
right. And so I think that it's the right mind frame, but saying it and doing it are two different things. I have no reason to believe that Stetson will do anything other than play exceptional when they play the Horned Frogs. They are the better team. They have done this twice this season, Ryan. The week after the Missouri game, they absolutely throttled Auburn.
Yeah. And I think what gets overlooked is how much over the last couple of years people have said, oh, well, when Stetson's down, when George is down in the second half, can they pull it together? But
Yeah,
out of the few times that that's happened, they've only lost one of those games. And it was the
right.
SEC championship last year, if we're talking about 21 and 22 Stetson. So Missouri, they go down the field and they scored when they had to. National championship, they go down and score twice when they had to.
Yeah,
They go down and score twice in the fourth quarter of this game when they had to. He's a guy that people are going to knock on him for being 25 and having all this experience, but that experience is a huge part of what's making them tick this way, because he is kind of like the stem of it, and that gets spread to everyone else. But um,
well, he's a
I don't
starting.
think, yeah, he's a starting quarterback in the SEC playing for national
Exactly. That's
champions.
literally what I was about to
He
say.
hasn't broken any rules on being eligible. The things that have happened the last years in life and in football are the reason why he's allowed to play. And this is his last go round. This is his last game wearing the red and black. I
Mhm.
I have a hard time seeing it being a fourth quarter game. I don't think it's going to be this big blowout. I think TCU is really good, but I agree with you. I mean, they just, was it Auburn the week after Missouri? They ran all over them.
Yeah.
Georgia's way more physical than this TCU team. I will say I was impressed with how physical TCU was in the Fiesta Bowl, but um, he I don't like his stat line in this game coming up. I don't think is going to be I don't think he's going to throw for 400 yards,
No,
because
I
I
don't
think
think you
you're going to
want him
probably see
to.
a more balanced game from Georgia.
Yeah, I don't think you want him to. I mean, I think first of all, just as this is my take, you know, this game is markedly different, the Ohio State game, if Georgia's defenders close in on Stroud and make some sacks. I mean that the game is markedly different. There were times when Stetson didn't play well. Okay, okay. Number one, you're the quarterback at Georgia. Criticism is what it is. It doesn't. I mean, most people don't know anything about football that talk about football. Stetson Bennett has, I mean, his pinky toe has more knowledge of football than I do, but the results speak for themselves. And at that time in the game, they weren't playing well, and that's it, man. It's that simple. It doesn't. People don't want to hear explanations. They don't want to. They don't want to hear about the labor pains. They just want the baby. And in this case, Stetson. I mean, it's not like he didn't. I mean, played pretty well the whole game. There were times where they weren't exceptional, but um, I think they're going to solidly beat Texas Christian. Um, with the Ohio State game, I thought Georgia'd win. They did win. Um, I did not think they'd be down in the fourth. They were. And I think that the big difference here, more than anything else, is whereas Ohio State, excuse me, whereas TCU has probably an extremely, exceptional receiver in Johnston. I mean, exceptional. And they have a really, really good quarterback in Duggan. They are not what Ohio State is, generally speaking, in terms of talent. Those two guys are certainly in the same universe, but everyone else is not. And that's gonna be the part for them that's gonna be tough in this game, I think.
Yeah, we
But
talked about that a little bit yesterday.
they are winners, Ryan. I mean they won a lot of football games this year.
Both of these teams are winners. I think that TCU being a Big 12 team kind of, makes them overlooked a little bit. It's not so dissimilar
Totally,
from these Oklahoma teams the last few
totally.
years that have made the
Well,
playoff,
Oklahoma gets more respect, generally speaking.
just because it's a little bit more historic of a program,
Yeah, but
right?
man,
That's gonna be part of
Oklahoma.
it.
Let me spit this out real quick.
Yeah.
Oklahoma can't handle TCU's jock in these playoffs. TCU's won a playoff game. I
Yeah.
mean,
Oklahoma has it, right?
Not, I mean, I watched them play Clemson and Georgia. They lost both those games. I mean, they got their ass waxed by LSU. So, you know, it's a great, it's got a great program. It's not a good program right now, but TCU, no one's taking them seriously, nationally and all that, only because a part of it is the way that they've won, Ryan. I mean, they haven't looked great in some of these games. I mean, Baylor is not a good team, and they had to kind of save themselves there. There are a few times they had to save themselves. Kansas State is good, so I'm not saying that
Yeah,
about K State.
I think, because I do want to keep it as fair as possible. Uh, Like, one, they were deserving of that 3 spot.
I
Um,
I think so.
Two, it is a really good football team. I don't think Georgia's necessarily going to go in there and just bounce them in the first quarter. Um,
No, but they have the capability to.
I didn't. This is the last time I'm bringing this up, but
Okay.
like with the Missouri thing, Georgia had to save themselves. None of these teams didn't have to save themselves at least once. You know what I
Why
mean?
why would we stop talking about the
To
Missouri
to
game?
oh, my
It's still.
light.
Oh no.
Oh no.
See, you tried to change the subject from the Missouri game. What are these Ohio State fans going to talk about? The Northwestern
Yeah,
game.
but my overall point with that is just that it's a live product. It's a sporting event that doesn't have like some scripted finish. Like,
Right.
things happen. People have bad days. Um, Good teams, championship teams, have to fight their way out of stuff. You saw that with TCU a couple of times this year. You've seen
My,
that with Georgia a couple of times this year.
Miami
You saw that with TCU.
2001.
Yeah, so I mean, it happens. LSU didn't blow out every single team they played in
No,
2019, as
that has
much as people like to
survived.
remember it that way.
Yeah, that here's the thing about these games, man. Like you and I were talking about '90s music, I think, or '80s music not that long ago, or it might not have been you, it was somebody at Christmas, and said they were like, I really like '90s and '80s music, and I'm like, well, you didn't live through it, so you're only hearing the good stuff. Like y'all are only watching YouTube highlights of Joe Burrow slashing through people. I mean, they they
Yeah, you
beat
have to
they
watch all the games,
they
man.
they they definitely dominated Alabama in that game, and Bama made it close. But LSU had to fight there. They had to fight their way out of Austin, Texas, when they beat the Longhorns that day. So it's not as easy as people try to make it seem. And Georgia survived at Mizzou. They survived the Ohio State game, but they haven't survived the other games, Ryan. They have throttled people. Period.
Yeah, and my point with that was TCU has throttled a few teams this year as well. Like,
They have.
they have the capability of scoring a lot. I
They
think,
have survived 6 times
yeah,
though.
yeah. I think I'm gonna coin. I'm working on coining a phrase about people who don't really watch the games and they just look at box scores and stuff. Right now,
Most of
right
them are
now,
on television.
it might be box score bozos. But I'm working on it. I'm looking for something that hits a little bit harder. But don't be that for you guys watching.
No, you
Um,
do want to watch the games. I mean, and
yeah, you don't
unfortunately,
even
because
have to be there necessarily to
no,
understand deeper.
no,
Obviously, we're there, and that gives us a deeper understanding and more information. But
right.
we also watch a ton of football games,
I was
man.
just gonna
We're
say,
watching After Dark in the basement, bro.
yeah, there's there's a certain amount of you got to kind of be a degenerate to be in the dog post crew, and we legitimately consume uh, after Georgia plays and there are night games, we
And
watch
before,
and
and
before.
before.
So there's 3 games on at night. There's 3 games on before Georgia plays. So we watch Georgia as well as those 6 other games. And there's usually not 8 good games on a Saturday. There are maybe are 6. And obviously we go back and watch the highlights of. I don't watch highlights. See, I watch the games. That's the difference too.
If
So
you're not watching Washington State and Arizona at 10:30
oh, it's
until
so
one
much
o'clock in the
fun.
morning, what are you
It's so
doing?
it's so good. I mean, you're not
Yeah.
really living life, is what I would say. But I think now that we have congratulated ourselves to death, um, I think in watching TCU though, Duggan's really good. I mean,
And
he's
he was
hard
the
to
Heisman runner-up, bro. I mean,
right.
you don't
He's
just
hard to
get
deal
there.
with. Yeah, he's hard to deal with. But you know, behind the scenes at Georgia, not one person, Ryan, said, oh no, we got this about Ohio State. Everyone acknowledged from the start this is going to be tough. Like
Yeah.
these guys are not a great matchup. These guys are tough. This is
And that's
not
what
going to be
happened.
fun. And that was what happened. Now, I've not talked to everybody since, but my view is no, it should not be as difficult. But we're going to see, man. You don't just roll the ball out there.
Yeah, and we're gonna get to talk to all those people again on Saturday.
Saturday.
Um, you brought up Quentin Johnston a couple minutes ago before we got off the rails, but Matt told, I think we were in the press box. He was saying, yeah, it was halftime, I think, at the against Ohio State. He was like, you can just tell that this defense is young, Georgia's
Georgia.
defense.
Yeah.
And overall, they are pretty young. They have had guys that have played a lot, Christopher Smith being one of them, Jalen Carter, and Keely Ringo. But outside of that,
Yeah, they are young.
the rest of the players haven't really played that much. And you got a true freshman in the back starting. And as talented as Malachi Starks is, sometimes you can tell he's a true freshman.
Sure.
And that has been one of the biggest differences between last year. People grow accustomed when they watch stuff. And so it's impossible not to compare this year's team with last year's team. So you grow accustomed to the way that Georgia just strangled people on defense and the offense didn't have to do anything, that watching what happens against Ohio State, it's just not something that happens with this program. One, because usually people aren't scoring that much and they don't have to claw their way back. But it is not impossible that TCU jumps out in front of them. I mean, they did it
No,
against Michigan. They could totally get out and score fast.
so I think you're right. However, I think the challenge there for TCU is if you watch them, they don't get off to good starts. I mean,
They did against Michigan.
they did against Michigan, but much like C.J. Stroud, that was breaking the habits. Um,
Hey, he broke some. He
oh,
looked good.
he was great, but like um, that, you know, that for um, for TCU, I mean, generally speaking, they're rallying in these games. I think, the first quarter always tells me so much, and that first quarter, it was clear Ohio State was just as good as Georgia, generally speaking. I mean, it took Georgia a second to get going. I don't think TCU has the luxury of taking a second to get going. They're going to have to come out and really play well immediately. I wonder to some degree, can they play the best game of their season 2 weeks in a row? I don't know.
Mm.
And I mean, I'm not sure you can do that's hard to pull off.
What was
Um,
Georgia's best game this year? Was it Oregon? I
uh,
mean,
I think the way they handle Oregon is good for sure. Um,
gosh.
don't worry about it. It's fine. I think the way they handled South Carolina on the road, an SEC team that was, an 8 or 9 win team, whatever they were, so that was a really good game. They played Tennessee really well. They totally dominated Florida. Um, I think, the way they beat Auburn and Vanderbilt, those were good showings too. But they strangled LSU from the start. If you're talking about halves, I don't know that you could play better than they did against LSU and Oregon in the first half, or South Carolina, to be honest with you. And after a while, it's just too much, Ryan. I mean, I don't know
Yeah.
what the get. It is totally possible that Georgia has not played the best game that they're going to play this
Yeah,
season.
'cause it feels like Kirby said that every single week. Our best
Yeah,
game is forward, or we haven't played our best game
the,
yet. And I'm
yeah,
curious as to if
the
that's
be,
true or not.
their best game they beat TCU 60-10.
What's
Uh,
TCU's best game and Georgia's best game? What's
oh,
the final
TCU
score
wins
of
like
that?
by like 10 or something like that. I mean,
No,
yeah,
no,
they
no,
could.
no. They both play their best game.
Oh, I think Georgia
Or is that
probably.
even a possible thing if you think about it?
It is a possible thing. I mean,
Yeah,
Ohio State played their best game of the season last week against Georgia.
they
They did.
did. And
So
Georgia, that was not their best game. But it was a damn good second half.
it was not their best game, but in all these games where they're, the problem playing the dogs is the defense steals a quarter or two from you. Excuse me. And against against Ohio State, it happened to be the fourth quarter. they just stole that quarter from them. It wasn't like it normally is, but like where they get a pick or something like that. But they stole the fourth quarter. They allowed them to kick a field goal. That was it. Like, and then Georgia scored 18. So it was whatever the numbers were. I can't recall off the top of my head, but and they basically said, no, you're not going to score this quarter. Um, and I can't remember if Georgia was like that in the second maybe quarter. Ryan, can you remember? Now I'm gonna have to look up the box score.
They came back from 14 to
Box
tie
score
it, and
Bob
they
over
lead
here.
by 3. Box score Bozo over
Box
here.
score Bozo, excuse me.
I'm going to come up with something better than that.
Trademark. We're gonna get you down to Kate down there. Kate Strain down there in Savannah is gonna have to copyright some stuff for you. But I don't. You're welcome.
Shameless plug.
You're welcome, Kate. Yeah. So Georgia did not score in the third. So in a way, TCU stole that quarter from Georgia. But it just
Ohio
wasn't.
State.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how I said that. Probably said it wrong, but um, you know, Ohio State got hot in the second quarter, and then they really did. They scored a touchdown after that, and that was it. So um, you got to be steady, got to score,
The
and
start of the beginning of the third was they came out flying. 2 touchdowns, I think, in the first 5 minutes.
who,
Ohio State
Ohio State.
at the beginning of the third.
So they did not score two touchdowns. They scored two touchdowns within 5 minutes, but part of that was in the second quarter because they scored that touchdown going in a half. So they scored 7 and then 21 in the second, 10 in the third, and then 3 in the fourth. So that I mean they're a real problem. That game, look, I made some phone calls today to confirm some stuff that I'm not going to even discuss it right now because it's not something I feel I'm not going to report on it right now. But that game was one of the greatest games that we've seen either of these programs play, and that's really saying something. You're talking about two giants of this sport, and they had a straight up classic. But Ohio State missed the wrong field goal essentially. And Georgia's missed field goals, plural, did not hurt them. You realize if Jack knocks those in, that Georgia scored 48 points, right? And Ohio State's not trying to kick a field goal to win it. They got to go down the field and score a touchdown. I'm gonna tell you right, they weren't scoring a touchdown on that drive. That was third. Well, they got a fourth down, right? So they had to kick it. So I didn't think they were going to score a touchdown, but we can go on and on and on and on and on. But the fact of the matter is that the Dogs, moving forward, Stetson does have to play better. It's not I mean, I'm not doing the whole Eric Ainge stupidity about it. He's just got to play better. And not like, I mean, everybody's got to play a little bit better. I mean, Stetson's not the only one that's got to play better. And it's not like he played so bad that it was, horrible. No, the guy won them the game at the end. Yeah, you got to play better. I mean, okay, but like Kirby and them can coach better too. I mean, they did. They adjusted. So we can't. I mean, I'm a little bit tired of. It, part of this is that he's the quarterback. I'm trying to stop talking, Ryan. Part of this is that he's the quarterback. But damn, man, do we? I mean, we always just only talk about Stetson, and I say we, meaning the media. I mean, we just and fans too. We cannot stop talking about this guy.
Uh,
And Aaron Murray
it's
had the same problem. I think Stetson to some degree gets it more, but I mean Aaron had to live through this. Matthew had to live through this. This is just what it is. If you are the starting quarterback at Georgia or an SEC school, we only talk about. I mean, we talk very much only about Bryce Young. But anyway, I'm going to stop talking. You take it.
yeah, it's it's just the sports nature. The
Yeah,
quarterback is always they've got the ball in their hands every play.
yeah.
So it's they're at the forefront. They're typically leaders of team. There are other players for Georgia that I didn't think played particularly well against Ohio State. It gets kind of brushed under the rug because the quarterback is such a
I think you want to
spotlight of the
see more. I
conversation.
think I think you want to see more from Jalen, like be
You
in
want to see
terms of
more from Jalen Carter. I want to see a little bit more from Jamon Dumas Johnson, even though he made a really key sack. That was the only play he really made. He got burned by that running back on that deep touchdown. there's other players that have to play better.
I want to see
You know,
Jackpot Nesley get back to being Jackpot. I mean, like, he had a tough game, but like
yeah,
again, this is a team sport, man. I mean, like Jack has saved their bacon way more times. Even in that game, he did. So like, and this notion of perfection and these guys are going to play unbelievable all the time. The moment with Keeley, that doesn't happen, Ryan, without mistakes. That game shouldn't have been as close as it was in theory. I mean, but you can't live in a science. We're not. It's not some sort of scientific room. They're out there playing football. It's hard.
yeah, it
It's
is. I
hard.
think if their best game is ahead still, they got one more game,
Right.
then TCU is not going to have a lot of fun in LA.
No, I
That's
don't
the way I'm
dis
going to put it.
I don't disagree with that. The question is, can Georgia make it their best game? We'll talk about that on Riding Home sometime soon. Thanks for watching.